All right, so Shane, welcome to the Klipp Encounter.
The what?
Yep, that's what we're calling it, the Klipp Encounter.
All right.
So basically, you're the first one on the show, and what we're trying to make it is we're just bringing guests on, and we're really just talking about anything that is of interest or in the news lately. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense why I'm the first one on, because being the foremost in my field, of course.
Yeah, so we've never really talked that much, so it's kind of exciting getting to talk to you for the first time kind of like formally, because, I mean, we've hung out with some people, but we've never directly talked. So I was kind of wondering just kind of how you feel about certain things that are going on right now.
Yeah, man, shoot.
Like in Paris, is it in Paris? I don't know, but the Notre Dame building. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, some people are saying that the rich should help the poor because they donated over $1 billion in 24 hours because the building was burning down. Yet they couldn't help the poor with any of that money. They couldn't.
Yeah, I don't think it should be a problem of rich and poor. I think the falling of Notre Dame is one of the landmark. It's not destroyed. They burned like some of the original pieces of wood framework in the roof and the original
so it's not
tower.
completely gone.
And not the original tower. Fun fact: when the original Notre Dame was built, there was a huge tower in the center, and then that got destroyed, and then there was about a century of disrepair after. There was a series after the Enlightenment, after the King Louis was dethroned and beheaded, where they kind of Christianity was pushed against, and it was seen as like the man that they had to stick it to. And there was about a century of disrepair where Notre Dame was vandalized and pieces destroyed. And it wasn't until about the time of Napoleon Bonaparte, whenever he actually had his inauguration as king and emperor of France. He actually did that in Notre Dame, and at this point it was still in disrepair. So to say that this is important to Western civilization and history would be an understatement. I would say it's a paragon of Western civilization. And to turn it into a political issue, a partisan issue of where the money should have gone is, quite frankly, ridiculous.
Yeah, because there's both sides that have been kind of using it to their advantage. Like, they didn't do enough, or they didn't contribute enough, or they're using the money wrong. And that kind of leads more into the issue right now of taxes, and companies should pay more, and like executives should get paid less.
And while that is a polarizing issue, we're not talking about something that should be polarizing. It should be something that's uniform across the board. You're talking about a building that took 2 centuries to build.
Yeah, that's true.
And don't even think about it as Christianity. It is one of the centerpieces to Western civilization, as much as Rome or Greek philosophical thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame to see it burn.
Yeah, and moving more back to like America's issues, how do you feel about how the border has just been in the news so much about what should be done about it?
Like what I think should be done about it?
Yeah, kind of
or
which
how
side,
well,
or how do you maybe think it's going to play out eventually? Maybe like a prediction.
In the past decade, illegal immigration has hit all-time highs.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's been questions, this question all over the news, whether it's right news or left-leaning news. Is there a crisis on the border? Now, talk to MSNBC or CNN, and they'll say that that's just a hoax created by the right to get funding for right polarized issues.
Yeah.
Talk to the right, and they'll say there's absolutely a crisis on the border and we need funding. Now, talk to executives in ICE, and they will tell you that there is absolutely a problem with immigration. We have had over 100,000 illegal immigrants come over the border, and this year isn't even finished yet.
Yeah.
There needs to be some sort of solution, whether that be funding for more federal judges for due process or a physical barrier. As to the effect, I won't comment on the efficacy of a physical wall, but I'd say it intuitively makes sense.
Yeah, like they need some way to kind of focus how things are getting done instead of just these wide arrangements of some are getting released, some are getting sent back, some are getting separated.
Let's talk about that, the separation.
Oh, yeah.
You hear from the left, all they do is hammer about the same issue. They'll show pictures of kids and behind bars and internment camps.
Yeah.
Making references to the Japanese internment camps, World War II, and it's ridiculous because whenever you look at why they are in internment camps, well, you have to look at policy and standard operating procedure. Now, kids are only separated
Yeah.
if they come and there's no parents, or their parents that did come are illegal. Now, the problem is that if there's someone that's coming here from another country without going through due process, they are intrinsically criminal because they have committed the illegal act of being an illegal alien.
And some of the stuff with the separation, it's just, you hear a lot about overcrowding there. Like, they don't know where to put them, so they're having to make like new areas just to send them to because they just don't have enough room at the border anymore.
Yeah, and you wanna talk about not having enough room. All you hear from the left is how much they love immigrants. They would love for them to come. Well, Trump decided to call them on that bluff.
Oh yeah, I saw it the other day. Yeah,
he said, I'll say the word and I will shuttle them in masses to all of your sanctuary cities where they are refusing to obey federal law. And what do they say? They take it as an insult. Mm-hmm. In fact, there were some news headlines where they said Trump wants to dump illegal immigrants, like they are trash.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy at its finest.
Yeah, and I don't think that's fair I don't think Democrats are kind of looking at the long term. Like, they know that they have, like, the minority vote and just kind of, other than, like, the typical, old whites voting for, like, the Republicans, they have kind of the minorities, like women, African Americans, even illegals kind of on their side because they're advocating for them, like, just so they can get the vote. But in the long term, then you're going to have more immigration issues, and eventually maybe they won't even support you anymore, and then suddenly it's just an issue we can't solve.
This is a very slippery slope that has really the potential to become a snowball effect, where the more illegal immigrants come in, the more they still reproduce once they're here, and now and their offspring are obviously by constitution, they're going to be legal citizens of the United States, which creates a problem because they have a name that they call them anchor babies, because some of them have babies just to have a legal bearing to be here.
Yeah, like, so they're not separated and stuff, yeah. And
which it holds major appeal whenever they're in due process and in a court. A judge will look more favorably on someone that has a kid and a wife here. It doesn't matter how he got here. It doesn't matter if he was a criminal back in his own country, and it doesn't matter if he's a criminal here.
Mm-hmm. And with the growing problem, like, have you seen the things about militia groups kind of at some border spots?
MS-13.
I'm not talking about games. I'm talking about U.S. like kind of protecting the border. Some of them, okay, so there's a difference. So there's kind of two sides I've seen of that. One of them is they're kind of holding them illegally, and the other one is the one I kind of think is all right and is legal, is they caught them at the border. There's around 300 of them. They didn't take them to like building and keep them hostage. They just kept them there, called border security, and they handled it. I think that's perfectly fine. Yes, they're armed, but it is dangerous over there, as you don't know any of those immigrants coming in.
I think I remember a CNN report where they sent a reporter to the wall to display its inefficacy.
Oh, Jim Acosta?
Jim Acosta, yeah.
Oh, Acosta, yeah.
And he was right next to the wall, and he was like, as you can see, there's no immigrants here, no crime, showing just how peaceful the border is. Now, that was where the wall was built, so obviously it would be peaceful there, and he actually ended up displaying the efficacy of the wall.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't notice the background, which,
by the way, in the background of his video, there was 2 illegal immigrants coming across the border.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I'll take go back.
That is the beauty of live television.
Oh, yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about the current way the election is going. So here's my kind of take is, I think if the Democrats even want a chance, is they have way too many people. Like, it's just flooding. It's like, how are you guys going to sort this out? If someone goes independent, then it's like,
okay, let's take it from a third-person point of view. I don't have any political affiliations. Not conservative, not Republican, not Democrat, not liberal.
It's kind of scope.
How would the Democratic Party have the best chance at winning? Okay, let's take Donald Trump's approval ratings. Half the country doesn't like Donald Trump. That is a ripe fruit for the picking.
Yeah.
Easy election to win if you can consolidate power within your own party, but you can't. You know what the Democratic Party needs is to completely rework their leadership. See, they've had Nancy Pelosi for ever. She's a dinosaur and she needs to go. Half the country doesn't like her. Nancy Pelosi, she gives a bad face and a bad name to the Democratic Party. And elections do not hinge on the far right or the far left. It hinges on the moderates that lean left or right on the current policy.
Oh, and Pelosi, I know we're going a little bit off track because I'm about to talk about impeachment, but you don't even have kind of a bond with how they want to deal with Trump because Pelosi and some of the older Democrats, they don't even want to impeach. So they think it's a waste of time by now. Yeah, because the Senate, obviously, it's just thinking it out.
That's because young senators don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
These older senators, Nancy Pelosi knows
they know how the system
that
works.
If they impeach Donald Trump, it won't go through. Now, how does a failed impeachment look on a party in the next election?
Yeah, it just shows that there's not enough to impeach upon.
Nancy Pelosi should have been ousted, and there should be new leadership erected in Congress for the Democratic Party because they are what take. And there's such a disconnect between seniority and these new Democrat faces that are coming in, and you have people like AOC, the Green New Deal.
Oh yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. I've been hearing about that.
You see that proposed, and then the president pro tempore brings it up for a vote in the Senate. 0 votes for it. Not even the Democrats vote for
the reality of it.
Now, the disconnect between AOC and AOC we're going to use as a caricature of most of the young Democrats following that she has in Congress. And then there's Nancy Pelosi. Now, if Nancy Pelosi kept a tighter grip on her, she actually act like she is her boss, maybe the Democratic Party would be a little more consolidated. Just one area that it needs to consolidate power in. And all of these people, they need to get behind one person, but they're not. Because what is the Democratic primary? It's just a vote on who can give away the most money and the most free stuff. That's how you win the Democratic primary. And that's how you turn off all of the moderate voters in the general election. And again, elections don't hinge on the far right or the far left. It hinges on those moderates. So you turn away those moderates in your primary, you turn away those moderates in the general election. That's how you lose. So from a nonpartisan political strategist, I would say, get behind Joe Biden. Get behind someone with a high enough approval rating.
Yeah.
And stop infighting. Stop nitpicking everything. Do not throw your chances away to be far left.
Yeah.
Don't. That's how you give it. That's how you turn off those moderates, and that's how you lose the election. Because as it stands, half the country doesn't like Trump. But you know what? Half the country also doesn't like.
What?
I don't know. Somebody in the Democratic Party.
So
true. Why does it matter? True. So half the country, winner takes all.
Yeah, that's true. And going back to the Green Deal, do you think it's realistic? Like some of the Democratic ideas, I think you got to match realism with what you want. With like the Green Deal,
now when I read
it's just too much money. I think from the different things I've seen.
When I read the Green New Deal, it was almost subjective. At the end of every single line, it would say as much as technically feasible. What does that mean? What is technically feasible? That doesn't make any sense to be in a legal document, in a legal proceeding. It doesn't make any sense. Because as much as technically feasible, you're going to get the whole country to stop eating meat to eliminate cow farts.
And what else, for like the people who haven't really read it, what else does it kind of include? Is there something about just overhauling America to clean energy, everything?
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was kind of a big point of it.
And that's fine in moderation. That's not what it's asking.
Yeah, moderation
is
what I'm saying.
For a complete renovation.
And that's where the issue is.
The problem, even with even that might have rendered a couple votes. Mm-hmm. But it's where she stops going into regulation of industry and government, and she starts going into regulation of behavior and what people do. Mm-hmm. People generally don't like it when they're stripped of their liberties. I don't know why. People want like pesky freedoms.
Yeah.
But
so moving on a little bit, with this situation with kind of what I guess if we want to get into a few candidates, kind of like their strong points and weak points.
Sure.
With like Bernie Sanders, do you think he honestly has a chance with
That
actually
would be,
winning, or is it maybe just the young people, which everyone knows
now
who he's applying to?
His efficacy as a president and as a leader is irrelevant. It would be relevant if he was a prominent figure and he had a chance of winning, but he doesn't.
Yeah, and I think
he has a large grouping of Democrats that would follow him. Why? Because he's charming. He's offering things that they want. And like I said, the Democratic primary is just who can give away the most free stuff and the most money. And who's going to do that? Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Now, even Bernie Sanders, when brought up the issue of reparations, said it's a stupid idea.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I just think it's not... The time period it's just too late to even think about it.
His weak points, he turns away moderates. No moderate wants to pay a 70% income tax rate.
Oh yeah, it's just ridiculous.
No moderate wants to do that. Not a single moderate. That's how you lose the general. 2, he has a niche group, but a large enough niche group that it siphons away from the rest of the Democratic Party. So, should he be in the primary and he wins, Trump would win.
Yeah.
Should he be in the primary and lose, it's a wild card who would win in the primary because he'd siphon so many votes. So, Beto O'Rourke could win.
And people
O'Rourke.
Yeah, people are calling Bernie, if he ever did make it to kind of against Trump, people are just calling it a battle against socialism versus capitalism, which obviously everyone's going to go capitalism, or I believe most people go that way because that's kind of what you associate with America.
I think you'd be surprised. I think you look at the demographic on current college campuses, and capitalism is seen as it's a taboo. It's a weird. It's bad. Yeah. It's seen as the enemy. Capitalism, that's bad, but socialism, that's what we need. They take no account of Venezuela or the USSR or any example of present or past day Marxism, and that's a good distinction to make. Marxism is not communism.
Yeah.
Well, it's not communism in practice. Marxism, it's a utopia, but with men, there's never perfection. There's men, and men are greedy. Capitalism uses that as a good thing. Communism, we know how communism works.
Mm-hmm. And with, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, so about the socialism aspect, some of the kind of older generations are saying that the reason that socialism is applying to the younger generations in colleges and stuff is because they're not really experienced with the free market yet, and it's kind of how economics work.
I think you can see that and the degradation of education, because take AOC, for example, pretty prominent socialist policy, and she has a bachelor's in economics.
Yeah.
No one with a dignified degree in economics could make that decision with a straight face. They just couldn't. It's ridiculous. Yes, she did. Now, that's a testament to the degradation of economics or her IQ. I don't know. Either way, bad for the scene in America if either she can get into power with that low IQ or our education is that bad that it paints socialism as better than capitalism. And I think it also speaks a lot to the current situation of finances of this youngest generation, because these people are in colleges, and colleges now, the education is far more expensive than it has ever been in the history of the United States. It used to just be for the rich, and then Public Works and FDR, and it started getting a little more affordable. Now, I won't get into the efficacy of FDR's policy, but it kind of marked this new wave of what we're going to call modern democratic liberalism. And nowadays, it's switching back to a life economically crippling job, going to college, getting a degree, hundreds of thousands of dollars in school.
And with the college, how do you feel about the ACT scandal? Some people are saying that they need to replace the ACT with maybe just how you did in school, with like AP testing and just overall grades. How would you maybe feel about something to replace it, or if this is just one bad experience for a test that should still be implemented.
It's a bad experience for a test that should still be implemented. The ACT is you want people in college not just with intelligence, but with knowledge.
Yeah.
That is what separates taking just an IQ test to get into college. You can have intelligence, but a complete lack of knowledge. Mm-hmm. And you can't have a lack of knowledge going to college. There has to be some sort of prerequisite knowledge. You have to have wisdom and knowledge. Only 2 prereqs. And I think the ACT is a good way to evaluate not only your intelligence, but your intuition and your knowledge. Because not only does it test just your raw reading ability, your ability to comprehend information, but your ability to solve not complex math problems, but in a time that is allotted to you. I think this one blight, and it's not one blight. There have been many blights on the ACT, many scandals.
Oh yeah, funny.
But this,
I just feel like this one is...
It's more pronounced.
Yeah, it's also because the media is just, for some reason, just taking off with it. I'm sure there's been cheating before, maybe not at this scale, but...
The media panders to their audience, and their audience on the left is they're young people.
Oh, yeah.
And they're young people that do not score high enough on their ACT to get into the college that they want, so of course they would want to abolish the ACT.
Yeah, and they definitely want to see, a reason why their life isn't going how they want. Maybe
exactly. They want something to blame other than themselves.
Yeah, exactly. They don't see why what they want isn't happening because they're not putting in the effort. They are lacking something. And
I'm not a psychologist, but I think it is abundantly clear to me that this scandal is coming from a place of insecurity.
Yeah, for sure. And if we're going to be talking about maybe ways for college to improve, they could start with so the deal with prices is a lot of people say they can't afford it, and maybe it has to do with what you do after college too.
Of course it does.
With how you use your education, because a lot of people don't aim high enough.
What are you going to do with a liberal arts degree?
That
is thousands of dollars down the drain with no post-uni plan. Mm-hmm. You have to have some sort of plan, or you have to have some sort of degree, and I hate to say it like this, that matters.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a psychology degree or medicine or get something that pays, and even just a major in biology. Mm-hmm. Get a bachelor's in biology.
I feel like I feel like you almost need to skip over the degree and look at where you want to be in the world after college, and then you see the process, what you need to get, what you need to do.
Yeah, I think that is a lack of foresight on the side of a lot of teens that don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. You see people that major in something for the purpose of figuring out what they're going to do with their life, and that to me is a terrible plan because it's a lack of a plan. It's void of any planning. It's weak discipline and it leads to failure. You need to have a plan. You cannot improvise your entire life. Mm-hmm. That's how you waste your life. That's how you wind up 30 and you have no idea how you don't have a job, or you're buried in debt. You can barely keep your head above the water.
Like the kind of...
Make a plan, make a budget, decide what you're going to do, decide what degree you're going to get and what job you're going to get with that degree.
Yeah,
that should be done by your senior year in high school.
Mm-hmm. And I think maybe there has to be... Because some classes take it, or some students just take at schools is maybe just a class that helps you budget a little bit, but nothing to really go farther, like how to buy a house, how to do a proper resume. They don't really teach you those things that actually matter.
Those are things that you need to learn yourself.
Yeah.
By intuition, previous knowledge.
And of course your parents can help you. They've been through it, yeah.
You can get help anywhere. Especially now, you have access to so many resources that you can take advantage of, and people don't. Ironically, for the vast number of resources that young people today have, they seem to have a whole lot of trouble figuring out basic things. When it's literally at the tips of your fingertips.
Fingertips?
Yeah, it's at the tips of your fingertips. So the tips of your tips.
So I want to talk about something that just happened really recently. which is students at, I forget the college, someone will have to look at it, but Brett Kavanaugh, U.S. Supreme Court Justice, he was invited to speak at a college, and the students, some of them, not all of them, of course, rejected this and were saying, no, you shouldn't come here, like, we don't want him here, you're making me insecure or scared to be here. And I just think that that's kind of hypocritical when colleges are supposed to be the one place where, you have all kinds of ideas coming in.
Yeah,
they shouldn't be cutting it off
anymore. College now is a cesspool of single-minded. It's a hive mind.
The majority of ideas kind of rules that.
Yeah, it's not a melting pot anymore. It's you either adhere to our leftist ideas or we'll censor you. We'll shut you up.
Milo Yiannopoulos. Yeah, didn't he get banned from like entire of Australia?
The entirety.
I don't know if it was entire of Australia, but I know he got banned from a certain part of it. And I know he couldn't stay there. It might have been all of it, honestly.
Yeah, Milo Yiannopoulos is...
And that's just crazy.
Milo Yiannopoulos is a neocon piece of human garbage. Now, I was a fan of him before, he started talking, honestly about himself.
Yeah.
He is not conservative. He's a neoconservative. Mm-hmm. It is... Oh.
But either side, I feel like it should be you gotta take responsibility for just allowing ideas to filter in.
There's a difference between ideas, and that category is a vast variety of things.
Oh, yeah.
It could be conservative ideas, liberal ideas. It could even be authoritarian ideas or communist ideas. Where I draw the line is disgusting, grotesque ideas that they don't have to do with politics.
Yeah.
He said that I believe he said it was him that enjoyed his sexual relationship with his priest. Now,
oh my gosh.
I don't have a problem with his homosexuality.
Oh yeah,
but not even the fact that he's flaunting it. It's the fact that he can talk about these, and it was rape. Mm. It was rape, whether it be statutory or rape.
Yeah.
It was rape, and for him to talk about it like it's no big deal, it's disgusting. He's a disgusting human being.
And that's also kind of not exactly into rape, also people nowadays are just having issues with how interactions go with all the Me Too movement, and some people getting hurt by that. Like we were just talking about Brett Kavanaugh getting hurt by that, Biden getting hurt by that. Which
Me Too. Okay,
that's still ongoing, which could prove he was at fault, but it is hurting people. Anyway. Yeah,
I mean. Let's talk about the Me Too movement. What do you think of the Me Too movement?
I think originally it had a good message that you maybe should kind of speak up, but
for sure
you should speak up relatively within a short time period of when it actually happened, not when these guys are running for office. Now, that shouldn't
psychologically some people
that might give them the strength to.
Some people can't, and that's fine. The only problem is that there is a statute of limitations, and the real problem is that, and there's a reason for that statute of limitations, is because psychologically that kind of trauma, the amount of knowledge retention that you have it weakens. It's weak right after. Mm-hmm. Your brain sort of, it shuts down in an act like that to protect you. And to think that 20 years from then, you can remember an event at a specific time and place,
it's kind of ridiculous.
Every single detail, that's why the statute of limitations exists. Mm-hmm. And it's there for a reason. It's important. But Me Too as a whole, of course it has a good message.
Yeah, but I think it's strayed a little bit.
I think it's the corollaries of it that bring the real trouble. I think that a lot of people that follow the Me Too movement think that it's intrinsic about the Me Too movement to believe, hashtag believe women.
Oh yeah.
Where you should believe the women essentially guilty until proven innocent. Mm-hmm. And it's completely contradictory.
Yeah, and that's not true. With the Kavanaugh thing, they said, would you want someone who is tried for sexual assault near you? And it's well, he was there's an investigation, but they didn't find anything.
That's the inherent problem with the Me Too movement today, is that this believe women movement is saying it's destroying men's lives.
Oh, yeah.
There have been plentiful false accusations that lead to the destruction of a man's life. He loses his job, his livelihood. He loses all the people that love him, his friends. And that, just getting accused, you don't have to get tried or investigated. Just getting accused can destroy your life.
Oh, so since we're talking about like kind of accused and tried, so this is obviously going to be a big one, the Mueller report. Now, there's a lot to talk about there, like people questioning Barr's like loyalty, if he's like Republican or if he can just be trusted as Attorney General. Like now parties involved just doing his job, which some people are not believing anymore. That he's leaning this way now because he didn't bring evidence enough to impeach.
Let's talk about this impeach blumph. Okay, so Trump. They've been trying to impeach Trump for 2 years. His entire presidency.
Yeah.
Now, they have gone on a tirade for the longest time.
And they've been trying hard, too. They've done everything they can. They
First,
pulled out all the legal powers.
They printed out shirts that said, "It's Mueller time."
Oh, yeah.
Mueller time has arrived. And I don't see any impeachment.
And even, like, Trump, if you go back, which I think it does say, like, he could have fired Mueller, and he was actually nervous about, like, the investigation, but he didn't find anything. So if he's not even positive about the person, like, how would you think that he already has an in with them? How would you think that he's aligned with them when he doesn't even really like him?
So first it's that he sexually harasses women. Impeach him. Fails.
Yeah.
Then it's about collusion. They go on a 2-year investigation and tirade, printing out shirts, "It's Mueller time." All of this news coverage saying that he colluded with Russia. Mueller report comes out. Definitively says he does not collude with Russia. So what does the media do? Do they apologize for 2 years of disinformation? Of course not. No. They come out and say, half of it's redacted.
Yeah, it's like...
And then they say, A.G. Barr, he completely biased. Listen to this. There will always be something else.
Oh, yeah.
Say we unredact everything in that document. Besides the damage that will do to the 14 ongoing investigations, those will be done for.
Yeah, they'll go back into Mueller's investigations like, hey, did you use this option or did you go that way? And I think they're always going to find a way to keep it going until the elections, till ultimately something comes up. I'm kind of happy a few Democrats have said this, that they don't necessarily support Trump or like him, but they're happy that there is no collusion, because if there was collusion between a U.S. president and Russia, that would cause all kinds of it.
Right.
All kinds of issues.
What are you seeing right now? Now that the information is out that there was no collusion, it's almost like there's a sigh of disappointment.
Yeah.
That the leader of the free world has not been colluding with the leader of the unfree world.
And they can't get through the party to like overall realize that that's a good thing.
It's atrocious. It's atrocious. And it's a disgusting distortion of what the Democratic Party used to be.
And I believe like they do have some good ideas. It's just the way they kind of announce their ideas, the way they show them is just kind of needs help. And the way they want to accomplish them.
There are certain ideas that they need to eliminate. The fact that abolish ICE even made it to the congressional ball field is...
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's a necessary part of the U.S. government. And deal with... so we're kind of talking about lawsuits and stuff. Jussie Smollett. That's an issue right now with the charges being dropped, which that doesn't make sense.
That's what happens when you know the family of the former president of the United States.
But us... And even, like, I think it was the police chief who even made comment that, this isn't right. Son, isn't one... I don't know the exact words, but I know it wasn't positive. It was that something should be done about it, which the federal government is looking into it, apparently.
It's a whitewash of justice, is what he said.
And I think it's funny how they're trying to play it off as it wasn't the two guys he hired. Like, everyone saw the same pictures. It's two African-American men or... wherever they're from, and they obviously were hired, and it was all over. And now they're suddenly, it wasn't them.
Faking a hate crime. If there's one recurrent theme I can label to the Democratic Party, it is a disturbing lack of foresight. I mean, abolish ICE. What are you going to do after you abolish ICE? And all of these immigrants just start pouring over the border.
Open borders, no control.
What are you going to do? You're not... I promise you they would come crawling back for ICE. Mm-hmm. They don't know that now because they have a complete lack of foresight.
Yeah.
Jussie Smollett, I don't know what he was planning on doing, making it completely obvious that he did it. Okay.
Like how it just kind of depends how much money you have with certain crimes that you can maybe get out of, which is kind of a recurring thing.
Oh, yeah. You want to talk about the giant caravan that came up through Mexico to get to our border? Let's talk about who funded that, because they didn't come here for free. They had to get here by some sort of means. You think that they all pitched in? No, if they all pitched in, they'd still have about $50. So, what's a billionaire scumbag that we can think of that might have funded it? Perhaps a Jew that sold out his own people in World War II, or... I know, George Soros.
Yeah, I was thinking of that. And, what was I thinking of? It wasn't about the caravans. It was about how, supporters. So I heard a good point the other day that, there's been Republican, just regular people who support that party that have been kind of arrested for saying, I'm going to kill these Democrats, or some who have even, taken steps to maybe go through with that. But I think it's kind of too much to say, that party is just crazy now. It's like you have millions of followers. You don't think a few of them are going to be, or hundreds of millions of followers. You don't think a few of them might be a little loose on both sides? I think it's kind of unrealistic to say that everyone that supports you is, all the way there and won't, kind of break apart on certain words.
I'd say that there's been more radicalization on the left than the right in the past 8 years. Let's look at least on a public display. Let's look at the play that was held in New York Square Park, where it was literally an assassination of Trump. That was a cool play.
Oh, I never saw it.
Except for the part where they tried to assassinate the president. Mm-hmm. And what was her name? Samantha Bee, I believe.
Oh, yes.
Called Melania Trump a...
Can we bleep that out? Yeah, we can do that.
It's a quote. I mean...
It is? Yeah, that's fair. It's a quote. But
who is the comedian? I say comedian because oddly enough, she's not funny.
Amy?
She held Donald Trump's severed head.
Was that her?
On camera? No, it was not.
Samantha Bee, Amy Schumer. Is it a female?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't remember. She's not memorable enough.
Yeah. Even though, what's kind of... You just think that's a little bit too far? This is
disgusting.
Yeah, this is a U.S. president. He's your president before he's just another party member.
Another comedian literally insulting his 12-year-old son.
Oh, yeah, that's a little far.
It's pathetic. It's pathetic jabs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's someone because they don't like him.
Yeah, and he has a lot of family members, and you always see people, taking little, stabs at their, personality, what they do, and all his family is somehow trying to relate it to him and stuff, or what he does to his family.
And then all the Democrats did in the very beginning of his presidency was cry nepotism.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to act like no other Democratic president has appointed his constituents, the people that helped him get to the place where he was.
Yeah, and you want people you can trust, and sometimes it just happens to be the people with you. Which, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Of course, you'd use the people that are with you, but I don't see any reason that they've faked their way to it. There hasn't been any negative things that come out, which of course the media would be all over if they somehow screwed up and caused some big chaos event.
Let's talk about the myth of global warming. I'm messing with you. Cut that out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Shane, it's been good talking to you. I'm glad we could finally meet formally.
Yeah, this was fun. I look forward to doing it again.
First time problem.
Fuck.
Hit him with the thanks for
You gotta-
watching
yeah,
Klipp
yeah.
Encounter.
Thanks.
Dude,
Well,
yeah. This is so great. Can we hit 3 likes?
All right.
Look at the camera and say.
All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Klipp Encounter. Thank you.